Now, how did a $14 million treaty settlement turn into a $20 million loss? Taranaki iwi Ngāti Tama fought hard for a stronger economic base, only to lose it all.
Ngāti Tama had high-flying dreams in 2003. In this video explaining the implication of their freshly signed Treaty of Waitangi settlement, the iwi leaders were enthusiastic for the future.
We hope to get experts in to help us.
That's the aspiration for me, is our people who are educated, and that they might look at the global world out there.
With 14 million in the bank and more than 1,800 hectares of land returned, they were determined to grow a prosperous asset base for their people.
Us as present-day people haven't done our job as caretakers and looked after what we've got. At present, it's recoverable at the moment, but let go for another 20 years and it will be gone. And I would like to see all Ngāti Tama people from around New Zealand get onto this issue, because it creeps up on you. All of a sudden it's too late, then you can't fix it.
But the iwi put their trust in investment advice from David Phillips. Back in the 80s, he was a multi-millionaire until his fortunes crashed along with his company, Pacer Carriage. A high-profile fraud case ended with him being acquitted. It was through David Phillips that the iwi invested in an Australian software company, My Virtual Home, and his property development company, Open Group. Both businesses have collapsed, taking Ngāti Tama's money with them. The iwi's CEO, Greg White, has resigned and is refusing to talk to the media about what happened, as is a new advisory board appointed to take over the iwi's affairs.
Well, actually, just this morning we did manage to get a message through to Greg White, but he's overseas and not available to talk, but he did send us this statement. The members selected and elected their board members. The board appointed me as the sole employee. Together, we set an investment course and we launched our waka. Admittedly, we did not follow the standard conventional conservative approach, and accordingly, things have not gone as planned, and our waka has hit some bad weather and ended up on rocks. The iwi can either give up and blame me for everything, something I have already accepted responsibility for, or we can repair the waka and set ourselves further horizons. Well, joining me now is Homewana White from Taranaki, who has watched the Ngāti Tama saga unfold, along with our commentator Willie Jackson, who, like me, also whakapapas to Ngāti Tama. Tēnā kōrua. Homewana, we'll start with you. What's your understanding of what went wrong?
Well, I don't really have an insight into how the decisions were made to gamble that money in cyberspace, but it appears as though the decision was made
in isolation?
In isolation.
Okay. Tell me what you think of the statement that I've just read out from Greg White.
Well, I suppose he had no option but to admit that what was done was wrong.
Are you pleased to hear from him?
Pardon?
Does this do enough, in your view, to answer to
well,
I guess, the accusations that have been levelled?
I think the real question is, where's the money?
Willie Jackson, what's your feeling after hearing this statement from Greg White?
Oh, it's good that Greg has admitted that there was some wrong done, and I think he's accepting that. The tribe has to move on. It's no good trying to find out where the money is. Well, they might go down that process still. But mistakes have been made, and now the tribe has to recover and set a process in place. As I said to our guests here, my relation will help things there. Homewana, Richard Batley has been brought in. He's got the right background. He worked with Witta Gardner. He's probably should have been there from the start, because they need sound financial advice. And Richard,
some would say that was what should have happened.
Absolutely,
in the first place.
They needed someone of Richard's expertise to sort of give advice. So they left it with Greg. And he made some big mistakes, unfortunately. My view on the settlement was that Labor should never have gone through with the settlement anyway in 2000, because it was a pitiful settlement. It was $14.5 million, and Greg and them grabbed at it. They jumped at that settlement and undermined, unfortunately, most of Taranaki in the process. That settlement should have been a lot bigger, and now it's gone. And I know it's unheard of, but I said on Talkback Radio over the last week or so, maybe the Crown should think about giving them another $14.5 million.
Why would they do that?
Well, the settlement, we're talking about a settlement process that recognises less than 1% of the actual loss of people. We're talking about pathetic
Why
settlements.
Why would the Crown want to give more money, though, now, given that this amount of money has just been lost?
Well, obviously they wouldn't want to give anything, but if they can give money to South Canterbury Finance overnight, which are mainly Pākehā investors, they should give some thought to this, but they won't, because there's a different set of rules for Māori. I know what happened was wrong, and it was terrible, and I know they won't give any money, but if they got into a different mindset here and realised that the whole settlement process is tremendously unfair for the people in the Hokianga, isn't it?
Home One, do you think that the government should have provided more guidance when the settlement came about?
If we are to apportion blame, Willie's right. That investigation will go on, and regardless of what I think and what Willie thinks, you know, there'll be an investigation and whatever will come out of it. But I think the blame has to lie fair and squarely at the process of settlement. Mm-hmm. The mandating process and everything associated with OTS.
So what are you saying? What needs to happen? Clearly there are lessons to be learned. So what needs to be taken from this?
Well, first off, an iwi has to have a very clear plan, an iwi plan, at a very high levels, and it needs...
Well, arguably that was there, though. It just didn't work. In fact, arguably, it wasn't Greg White or anybody else's fault. It was just unfortunate circumstances that led to the money being lost.
Well,
Two companies went bust.
I don't think what they followed was a high enough level of input from iwi into that plan. You know, Willie and I could go down the TAB and agree, oh, let's buy back a couple of horses.
Well, it seems like that's almost what the investment plan was all about.
Yeah.
Look, I think what
the investment plan was to build on the...
Yes, but it was not enough money to be going down that track. And what the whanaunga knows is that Crown goes in, they pick the relation who they're going to deal with. That relation's undermined the rest
so
of
does that mean then, does the government then need to take more responsibility, provide guidance to iwi on how to manage their
there's
funds?
always been that view too, that the Crown should offer support once the settlement has been given.
Of course, so then that does raise the question of is it a paternalistic approach, which is what Chris Finlayson says.
Well, we don't want to. Well, Finlayson's right in some respects, and it's okay for the big iwis who have the Tipene O'Regans and Bob Mahutas to call on. Some of these smaller iwis, though, with respect, don't have the people with the real expertise to deal with it, and so the Crown must give some consideration to more support for our people afterwards. But again, I come back to the process. The process is a bit of a cowboy process. You know, they pick out the wrong person. We've got the other people in the Hokianga who are complaining all the time. The settlement, the $14.5 million, Miriama, is already worked out before they get to the table. That's why when I talk about the Crown should give consideration to giving more money, it's because the whole system is a rip-off anyway. Okay. And our people are getting less than 1% of the actual worth of settlements.
Okay, but now we have to look forward. So can Ngāti Tama rebuild? Homoana?
Very difficult. Very difficult.
And what do you see, Willie? Do you believe there is a possibility?
It's going to be. I think look, it's going to be very difficult, but it's funny what you can grow, and I think they've got the right team in. As I said with Richard there, they've only got $1.5 million, but he'll know how to invest it. There's some good people in there. The Tutas are in there, Jamie Tutu and all them are there. Good people in there who've got good business background, a lot of expertise. I have hope that they can build it, but I think they need to bring in the wider Ngāti Tama. You know, there are a group out there, like the whanaunga over here, who've been just left out, basically, right?
All right.
By your nephew, Greg.
We do have to leave it there, I'm afraid, but of course we are very sorry to hear that this has happened to Ngāti Tama, and we do hope